Hey, BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner, and it's time for some literary ramblings. So, let's talk about what I have been reading lately. So, first, I should say I made a little bit of. I'm continuing to make my way through the first part of Les Mis, Les Miserables. Um, by the way, I don't know how accurate my French pronunciation is. It probably isn't very accurate. I'm trying to pronounce it correctly, like with the title and stuff, but I'm not. I didn't study French, so I don't know the correct. I don't know the correct pronunciations. But unless I hear them quite a few times, then like all the names of a lot of the main characters, because I used to have the movie with Liam Neeson and Jeffrey Rush, but I ended up donating that to the roast office. And then I've seen the play a few times. So I've heard like the main core of cast members, their names quite a few times, so I know how to pronounce those. But anyway, so I'm basically up to the part when Monsieur Madeleine overhears Fantine's story and tries to help her because she is being arrested by Javert for defending herself, although it looks like an assault to him, from that guy, that aristocrat, the rich dude who put the ice in her dress. And so Javert is gonna arrest her, but Monsieur Madeleine, the mayor, overhears the conversation. He chooses to believe her. And she, and he grants her freedom and offers to help her, although at first she doesn't believe him because she's tired, delirious, and she thinks very ill of the mayor because she believes he is the reason that she is now living on the streets as a prostitute and she can't get to her child because he owns the factory and people are like, and she got fired from it. And in the stage show, there's more to it. They're giving a little bit more to the story, which is that the guy who owned the manager essentially tries to go after Fantine sexually, and she ignores his advances and rejects him, and he of course gets all mad about that. And some of the other factory girls overhear that Fantine received a letter from the Thénardiers about her daughter Cosette, so they tell him, and he automatically assumes that, oh, so you'll give it out to this guy, but you won't give it out to me, and she gets fired. But they don't have that in the actual book. And so, and the mayor tries to help her get better, but of course she's essentially dying. It's too late for her. And he keeps promising that Cosette will be here soon. Like, he keeps writing to the Thénardiers, and they continue to up the price or make excuses for why Cosette can't leave. And Javert has come to Monsieur Maire and admits that, oh, I told my boss that I thought you were Jean Valjean, this convict that I knew, and because you're really strong and all this other stuff, but we found the real guy, and all these other prisoners recognize him, are like, oh, that Jean Valjean, all right. And what I never really understood, was Javert trying to did he still, because he seemed so adamant that Monsieur Maire was the guy, and he already didn't like him. He already had, did not, he prevented him from arresting Fantine because he believed her so, guilty, and the mayor believed her innocent. And of course, they talk, when we're first introduced to Javert, he's that type of very, by the book, by the law, everything is by the law. And they even say in the book that he would, if his own parents broke the law, he'd arrest them. So the way he's described makes him seem a lot worse than the way he's portrayed. But then, you have the added information of being told to you all these other things about him and how bad he really is all about being, very adamant about the law. And although he's a really beautiful song in the movie, the song Stars, and I still don't understand why. I'm guessing that he told him about it because he wanted Jean Valjean to admit who he really, the mayor to admit that he is Jean Valjean. I'm not 100% sure, and I know that sounds, and maybe some of you will think that it's obvious and that I'm dumb for not knowing, but I really don't. I'm trying to understand. I never really understood that part. Even watching the musical or watching the movie, I mean, because it seemed like he was pretty adamant that Monsieur Maire was Jean Valjean. So I don't, I'm, because I'm guessing, but if he thinks he's such a bad guy, though, why would the Monsieur Maire confess to be Jean Valjean if he's such a bad guy, if he's such a criminal? Like, people that are generally villainous or antagonistic or bad people would not, be admit their guilt. I mean, all it shows is that Jean Valjean, the real Jean Valjean, has a really moral compass and, and, realizes that letting this other guy, pay for his crimes is wrong and messed up. So it doesn't. So if I'm right, then that also doesn't make any sense on Javert's part. But then again, Javert's he has that mentality of, I'm gonna get my man no matter what. So that's how far I have gotten in this. I'm almost done with this section. There's where am I at? There's 2 more chapters in here, in this first section, if you want to call them chapters. Yeah, because I'm on the part, chapter 7, I guess, and then there's chapter 8, Counterstroke. And then we get to, and then we get to the section where it's years later. I don't remember what year this is supposed to be, but it's years later, and Cosette is a young woman now, and he's living, and the whole revolution is going on, and all the students are trying to start a revolution and get away from France. Get away from the king, overthrow the king, and be free. All the students. So that's how far I am with this one, and I have all of September to read that part. So I'm ahead of the game. Okay, now as far as the book that I actually finished, my most recent books that I finished were these 2. Not this whole book, but the second story. One of the stories in this book. But I will talk about that. Let me first talk about this book. This is such a beautiful but very tragic story, and it's not one that I'm gonna keep. I'm gonna donate it back to the Rose Office, which I just found out that now they're opening, but it's gonna be limited hours there. So, only a few days a week, and then 10 to 2. It's going to be open, so, which I get, I definitely understand, because with the pandemic and everything, they want to, she wants to allow people to go there, but, find a compromise. Allow people to go, but still be careful. And I'm sure we'll have to wear, masks and stuff. But anyway, and we have 2 storylines, the story of Lily, and then the story of Julia. And Lily is set in the 30s, and then Julia, which is the present day of the story, is set in the 1950s. And so we have our Lily story, like I said, takes place in the 30s, and she was born an albino. And that is, in case you don't know, that is basically someone who their skin pigment is white, like powder, like baby powder white. And because of that, and this is in the 1930s, so because of that, her mom thinks she's an abomination, she's a monster. Her dad eventually even tells Lily that her mom wanted to have her killed, and that her mom thought she's being punished by God because she's a very religious woman and is a religious fanatic, and she makes, religion look like it's full of crazy people that are really mean and wrathful, and, you get punished for stupid things like your skin color. And um and eventually one day, and she lives her whole life in the attic, and she does not, her only knowledge of the outside world is through the books her father gives her, because her father still like gives her gifts and stuff, and like books and toys and clothes and food and all that. Her mom only rarely visits her to to see her and stuff, to talk to her. And eventually, while her dad is away on business, her mama as she calls her, takes her, sells her to a circus that is passing through, the Barlow Brothers Circus, and she is put in the freak show as an albino fortune teller. And then eventually that doesn't work out, and she eventually gets to the job of working with the animals, because it is discovered that she has an affinity for animals. She can connect better with the animals, and she particularly bonds with the elephants. So there are parts of the story, not just the circus setting, but also with the elephants reminds me of Water for Elephants. I don't remember the author of that one, but it has there are a lot of similar aspects to Water for Elephants in this book. Now, even in the circus, unfortunately, the two men that kind of run the circus, the guy who runs the freak show, and then the owner of the circus, Mr. Barlow, also treat horribly and abuse her. And sadly there's even one scene where Merrick, the guy who manages the freak show, attempts to rape her. So, by the way, there's an attempted rape in the book. But there are some bright spots in this. The circus kind of has a found family for Lily. She feels a little bit more love in the circus, despite Merrick and Barlow, with Glory and Cole, who she ends up becoming her love interest. Ruby and Rosie, who are these twins, and it's these Siamese twins, and Cole's father, and of course the animals she forms a connection with as well. And so there are sprinkled moments of happiness for Lily, there's a lot more hardship, unfortunately, for Lily. Now, Julia's story, like I said, is set in the 1950s, and you find out that she lived in the same house that Lily lived in, that Lily was born in. But eventually she runs away from home from her controlling mother. Her mother is very controlling, and like Lily's mom, is very religious, and even blames her when Julia is like out hanging out with her friends and going swimming, and her dad goes out to find her, and he already is an alcoholic. He has he's an alcoholic, and he's been drinking, and then he ends up in a car crash, and her mom ends up blaming Julia for her father's death, because her father was out looking for her and at the time of the car crash. So it's like, it's your fault that your father died, and that is the last straw for Julia, and she ends up running away and trying to make a new life for herself. But eventually her mom passes away, and she is called by the lawyer to come home because she owns the property, her parents' house, which is also a ranch, so there's horses as well as elephants. And she discovers that there's some secrets in her family that not even she knew about. And those secrets happen to be connected to Lily. And so Julia is slowly piecing it together. And those are some of my favorite stories, when an average person plays detective and has to realize that something happened a long time ago in the past, and decides to put the pieces together and try to figure it out. I always love those kinds of stories where you look into the past and learn about this main character, this protagonist, is trying to figure out what happened to the past in the past. And also, just like a lot of little girls, I loved horses. I even took riding lessons probably for only like a year, because eventually I accidentally, without realizing it, because I commanded the horse to do something I was not ready for. And yes, you can accidentally do that, because, the way you tell the horse to do what you want it to do is you kind of squeeze its thighs. And without meaning to, I told it to like canter, I think, and yeah, canter is, I think, trotting is just the kind of like the walking, and cantering you get a little faster, and then galloping, of course, is like you're running, like the horse is running. And I told it to, actually, I might have told it to gallop, because I might have at least gotten to cantering. And I was not ready, and I almost fell off the horse, and I'm so glad, because thinking about it now, because I've heard stories about people getting hit on the head by horses, the hoof of a horse, and now that I think about it, I was like, I'm so glad that did not happen. But I still love horses, and I kind of regret not trying again with the horses with lessons. But anyway, and Lily starts, like, I called her Lily. Julia starts to, she starts to learn how to take care of the horses, while at the same time trying to figure out what happened and what her connection to Lily is. So this is a beautiful story. It's really good. I love the circus atmosphere, the animals that you interact with, and the story that the characters interact with as a person who loves animals. And just the found family atmosphere of the circus is always fascinating to me. Every story that I've come in contact with and explored that has to do with the circus and animals and stuff has always interested me. Now, I would not want to be part of that life, especially the way they, in these stories, that a lot of the ringmasters and owners of the circus treat the people. I don't know if I would want to live that life, but it's so fascinating, so engaging and entertaining to read about, like, especially with, the whole found family feel and the idea of traveling, and having this be in your life, this atmosphere, and especially, the fact that these people. And even at the back of the book, there's, a lot of these historical fictions always have, like, study guide questions. If you, like, have a book club or something, or read this in school, I guess. And one of the questions was, would you, if you were one of those quote-unquote freaks, would you have, back then, and this is during the Great Depression, would you have done that? Would you have exposed yourself and sold yourself to these people because you could make money off of your, having some kind of, like, having a skin pigmentation or having some deformity or a disability or something, like a physical disability. Like, would you be willing to do that? It's an interesting question, because I feel like you wouldn't know. You can say that you wouldn't be at the moment right now, but what if you weren't around during the Great Depression? You didn't have any money or any food for, you needed a place to stay, to live, something to live off of, to make money. Maybe you would be willing to do that, or maybe you would stay true to your morals. Or in this story, Lily is intimidated and bullied quite a bit by these people. Like I said, there's an attempted rape scene. Which, by the way, not only that, but there's child abuse and there's animal abuse. There's a particularly hard scene during the climax in the book. So if you are someone that can't handle that kind of stuff, then I don't know if you would want to read this. So there, like I said, there's a lot of, it was hard for me to, but I mostly got angry. Funny thing is, I more get angry than anything. I will cry during a movie, but I will get angry when I'm reading a book. I think because it's hard, it makes me, because I'm not just, when it's a movie or TV show, I'm not using my imagination. I can see it, it's tangible, so it has more of an effect on me, and causing, see, while with a book, you're reading the words on the page, and yeah, your imagination can be really good, but, my imagination might not be that good. But it was very hard, especially if I've never seen it before. Like I said, the thing in the climax was just so horrible, but I've also never actually physically seen that, and I don't want to see it. But anyway, this was, such a heartbreaking, at times beautiful read. Like I said, if you can't handle stories about abuse, animal abuse, or human abuse, or, then this might be a little hard to read. And you might not want, so you might want to check on other people's reviews as well, and, read up on the book first to see if you could handle it. But either way, I want to read some for other books, like Coal River, What She Left Behind, which I think in The Plum Tree. I think that The Plum Tree seems to be during World War II. I think What She Left Behind is the one that's to do with in the insane asylum, and then Coal River is like a coal mining town. So I want to read those. Like I said, when the roast offs open up again, I would check. I was planning on checking for these or other books because the roast office is cheap. It's a used bookstore. The only thing is it doesn't. It's not like the one in Southern Pines where it takes books that are you can get credit for the books and use that money to get half price on the books that you buy. But they're more of just take they want donations. But anyway, so I got it because it was a good book, but it's a depressing book at the same time, and I want to read her other works, like I said, but I don't know if I'm probably not going to keep it because I don't see myself reading it again and putting myself through that again because it wasn't a bad book, and it's not that long, but it's a hard read, and it was hard to watch with the characters, Lily, what she goes through, and all I'm going to say, it was not a happy ending. I mean, it was happy for one of the characters. It was bittersweet, kind of, but not for the other character. Their characters is, like, what I appreciate about Kate Morton is, it may have a tragic, although a lot of, actually, her ending's going to be kind of tragic, too, for one character, but, I don't know, it doesn't, I think, not that what happens to grown people is not bad, but certain types of people affect me. What happens to certain types of people, like children, little like girls that have been through a lot ever since they were, a child. It's just some certain books, certain bad sad endings affect me more, harder to read than others. And like part of me was kind of hoping it would be a happy ending for both characters, but unfortunately it wasn't, which is probably more realistic. Okay, so that one is going back in the donation pile, and I read Rip Van Winkle from this collection. I finally read it. I was vaguely familiar with the plot, like I've heard what it was about. But this is a short story by Washington Ivory. It's more of a fantastical story than a supernatural story. You have our main character, Rip Van Winkle, who's this guy, he's a Dutchman, and he's just, all he wants to do is, he avoids his chores that his nagging wife constantly wants him to do, and she's like, he's just wants to lie back and just chill and play with his dog and do what he wants, and his only consolation to get away from his wife is when he goes up to the mountains to go shooting, whatever animals he hunts. And he ends up falling asleep up at the mountains. And he has this very weird, bizarre encounter with these strange people. And eventually, and I don't know how much more I can say. Like, he just has this weird experience when he ends up falling asleep and has a very weird experience. And wakes up to a brand new world. That's all I'm gonna say. It was okay. I'm glad I read it. When I saw how many pages, I was kind of surprised how short it was. But then it's a short story, so I really shouldn't have been. It wasn't anything wow. It was kind of interesting. Rip Van Winkle was kind of amusing as a character, but at the same time, I was kind of like, he's also a frustrating character, and I felt really bad for his wife. She, I imagine she works really hard, but she's portrayed as annoying and nagging and stuff. And I definitely, as an adult now, as a modern day person, a woman from the 21st century, I think, I think it's a little bit judgmental, and but it's interesting to see how people like Washington Irving thought about women getting married and stuff like that. in this time period, and um, even in Sleepy Hollow, like the one female lead is like there's not much to her character. Like that's why I still kind of prefer the Sleepy Hollow, the Tim Burton movie, because the characters are so much more interesting. The story is even more interesting. Ichabod Crane is more interesting, and so even Abraham is more interesting. In fact, he's more interesting in Brahm is even more interesting in the TV show that came out a couple years ago on Fox. That was kind of like a telling, a more modern retelling where Ichabod, like, mixed with kind of we kind of get a little bit more of the revolution, the American Revolution, and he ends up like waking up in modern times, where and his and the wife is dead and everything, and it's that one made it really elaborate a lot more on the story, and I really liked those first couple seasons. I felt bad because I was so adamant to be like, I'm not going to hold the changes against the show, because I feel like it's unfair. The people decide, oh, we're not going to watch the show because they got rid of Abby's character and she made the show and blah blah blah. So I was determined to watch it and prove them, be like, even though, be like, just because you think that, not everybody thinks that way. So, because I'm stubborn and immature like that, and so I kept watching it, but then at some point I kind of got I just stopped watching it. But anyway, but yeah, all those, that's just like with Alice in Wonderland, where the adaptations I'm more interested in the adaptations than the original story, but I am glad that I read the original story last year. I think it was last year. And so anyway, back to Rip Van Winkle. So it was just not a lot happened. Like, I mean, it was very interesting, and I don't have a lot to say because it was just a quick story, and it wasn't anything special. I'm glad I read it, like I said. Reading it now as a modern 21st century woman, like I said, is just very interesting how he looks at how he portrays the wife. And then, like, Rip Van Winkle likes some women, not all, as long as they're not nagging him like his wife does. But I feel like this story, I imagine it was very much the commentary of how he felt women should be, and the aspects of women he doesn't like, and how they shouldn't be. I'm wondering if that's what this, or at least that's what this one review said that it was supposed to be. Anyway, so I want to try to read after this, I don't want to do this one story from this collection once a year thing. Like, I read Sleepy Hollow last year, and then this year I read Rip Van Winkle. I don't want to wait another year until I read the next one, which is I guess author's account of himself. I guess that's the next, or maybe that's the next, or maybe, I don't know, yeah, I guess I'll read that one I should read that one next, because Rip Van Winkle and Sleepy Hollow are, what is it? Yeah, that one, Sleepy Hollow's towards the end of it, so, I'll start reading these in order now. I just wanted to get those ones read, because they were the ones I was most familiar with. But, there's also some Christmas ones in here, so I should probably read some of those around Christmas time. I'll have to see how long they were, because I can do like I did with Sleepy Hollow, where I'll read them on here if they're not too long. Like, there's Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and Christmas dinner. Well, I wonder if traits of an Indian character are going to come off as a little racist to the Native Americans. But yeah, I'm gonna read all the rest of these. Well, this one, in case you're interested, this is from Sweetwater Press. If you have a Books A Million near you, you can get these in the discount, the clearance section, near the clearance section. That's where these usually are. That's in my experience, or at least that's where I usually, in my experience, all the Books A Millions I've been to, that's where they usually are. It's the same. It's also where my editions of a few of the Dickens novels. That's what I think it's the same. It's the same company. I love these. I love the colors and everything of these. Okay, so now the one let me talk about this one. Okay, so I'm almost done with The Shining, and what I love about Stephen King is he just, he sets up the whole book is like a lot of the beginning is basically just setting up the characters, introducing them to the characters, giving the history of the characters, and yeah, for some people, it's not the most pleasurable, and people get impatient, but I love it. I love how he really establishes characters, and you really connect with them, and you get to know them, and you can relate to them, or at least you're familiar with them, and you're like, oh, and which I noticed something very interesting in this one. That's like, I was watching Daniel Green's video where he talks about how like he compares Stanley Kubrick's movie to the original material, and he said, in Daniel's opinion, that is a good horror film, but it's not a good adaptation. And he does elaborate on it a lot. Now, I haven't seen that one, and I do believe Stephen King made his own adaptation, a miniseries adaptation that's a little more accurate to the book. And and I do know that King was not a fan of Kubrick's movie. And one of the things he mentioned is that the name, like, first of all, it's, if you're familiar with Stanley Kubrick movie, it's Jack, I can't think of his last name. It's not Jack Black. It's Jack, I can't remember his name. But in this edition of the book, the character's name is Jack. And the actor playing him is Jack something for some reason. I like this actor, I just can't think of his last name for some reason. And I was just reading on this page here, all of a sudden, like, throughout the whole book, it's always Jack. The character is always referred to Jack. And in this book, on this page, the character is starting to be referred to as John Torrance. And I remember Daniel saying that the character's actual name in the original book, original publishings of the novel, is John Torrance, not Jack Torrance. And you don't know why all of a sudden it was changed, but in this book it's Jack Torrance. But now all of a sudden on this page, my edition, page 394, the section towards where the chapter in the bedroom where Torrance and his wife are just talking, and Danny has this weird experience where he gets choked by a ghost, and of course, his father doesn't believe it's a ghost. He thinks it's some psychosis or something, like a psychological thing, like Danny, the little boy, is doing it to himself. And Wendy wants them to get out of there. She's very afraid for her son. And, and of course, throughout the whole book, it's interesting that something that Stephen King does in a lot of his books is when he puts the character's thoughts on the page and puts them in parentheses, too. And throughout the book, you can see how easily annoyed Jack, I'm going to call him Torrance because, it'll be very confusing. Torrance is with his wife. Like, she's like asking if he, she's like, you're still gonna get us, because they have a snowmobile at the hotel. And she's like, "Are we gonna, remember? So you're still gonna get this?" And he's in here. It says, "Stop nagging me," like, and he says on the previous page, he's like, "I said I would do it, so I'm gonna do it." And then, like I said in parentheses, "Stop nagging me." So he's really annoyed by his wife. And there are times when he gets mad that she still does not have a lot of faith in him because he's an alcoholic, and I don't remember what he did to Danny. Maybe hit him or grabbed his arm or something. He did something violent to Danny. So now she doesn't trust him anymore. That's which, by the way, one of the things that Daniel said that is different is that the character, first of all, the book focuses more on Danny connected to his dad, but while the movie focuses more on Jack Torrance. And then in his insanity, and then the movie kind of portrays Wendy as very vulnerable and weak. Like, she has some strengths, but she's also much like the victim. But in the book, she's portrayed as a lot stronger of a character. So Daniel Green's video is very interesting. Like, you should check it out. But anyway, so if you guys are interested in that video, I'll send you the link. Unless you already watched Daniel Green's, which I definitely recommend if you're a fantasy fan. If you read fantasy. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I'm up to the point where, like I said, where Danny almost gets choked by this ghost of a woman in the bathtub, and you can see Jack slowly changing and being affected by the presence of the ghost, and even though he doesn't believe it. Like, there's the one scene where he gets attacked by the hedge animals slowly creep on him, and it's very slowly, very steadily, like, just creep up on inch by inch, like, and he tells himself that it was just an hallucination, I was just imagining things. Like, he keeps saying it, and I keep, as I'm reading, I'm thinking, no, the problem every time the character like that says it was just my imagination, it's not real, it was just an hallucination, something always happens to prove them wrong. Now, of course, I can kind of understand, because stuff like that, like, does not happen in the real world that often, so it's like, I can understand where in the moment, it's hard to believe, but I also thought about something else that it's not just about not believing, it's also, why would you want to believe that there's a monster or a ghost or something, or, that something's chasing after you that's not human? Like, why would you want to believe that? So I think at the core of it, a lot of people who say, oh, it's not real and you're being silly, they don't want to believe it anyway. Why would you want to? Because the idea of a ghost or some psycho killer, coming back from the dead, or like, the ghost, being, or like something like hedge animals coming to life and eating you or trying to kill you, that why would you want to believe that? I can't remember if we got to the twins yet. I don't know if we've seen them yet. I can't remember if I got into that chapter yet. But anyway, because like I said, I'm reading this sporadically and I have not read it straight through yet. I've taken a lot of breaks in between. One day I'm going to be able to read a book this size and read it straight through without stopping. I mean, you would think I would, because like the print is big and stuff like that, but anyway, so I'm really having a good, I love Stephen King and how he really helps you get engaged with the characters and get to know them, and he writes all the nitty-gritty details. He does not sugarcoat anything. So, and then, I am finally got around to reading, because I'm reading the start of the series. I wanted to read something that was a little lighter. Not as light as, like, a romance or something, but a little more whimsical and magical rather than dark and tragic. And this is so great. I mean, I love Erin Morgenstern's writing style. This is the author who wrote The Night Circus. This is this is her second book. But it's such a beautiful, I'm just getting lost in the story. And who wouldn't want to find out there's a secret society and all that kind of stuff, and that everybody, and the idea of stories, everybody has a story, and, to be part of this group of people and find this magical place. So our main character is Zachary Ezra Rollins. And while in the library, he's an undergraduate, and while in the library, he comes across a mysterious book which does not have a barcode or anything like that. But in the book, he discovers a story. He is in the book. An event from his childhood where he discovered a magical door, but did not go into it. He discovers that is in this book, and he does not know why. So he has been investigating this and trying to figure it out with a little help from his fellow students, one of his fellow students, and he ends up at a magical masquerade, where he encounters Mirabelle, and then later Dorian, these two other entities, and they accompany on his quest to find the Starless Sea. It definitely is going to be a hard book to sum up. And the writing, and it definitely feels very much like it has nothing to do with Night Circus, but other than the author, and it definitely but it still at the same time gives me Night Circus vibes. And there's chapters that remind me of what she wrote in the Night Circus as well, like just the way they're written, and it feels very much like a fairy tale with the writing, and there are parts of it that are like a little, not traditional storytelling, and just have a fairy tale-esque feel to them, and the way they're written. It's hard to really explain it. But it's one of those books that I feel like I'm just gonna have to I'm piecing it together along with Zachary, and I won't get the full picture until like, the end or maybe halfway through. I don't know, but I'm just gonna enjoy the ride. I feel like you just have to keep going and read. And the good news is, just like with the Night Circus, the chapters are very short. They're not that long, so you can get through them. I can get through them quickly, even though this is a long book. It's about pages. I'm not gonna count that. 494 pages. So it's almost 500 pages. So it's 494 pages. But hopefully I can get through this really quickly. And I love this cover. Although, I also, sometimes even I love this, and I'm glad that this is not one of those books that's, when you take off the dust jacket, it's not like a solid color. It has this on there. I really like that. I like that it has that on there, so I wouldn't mind not having the dust jacket on. Like, that's why I never, even though I can understand why people don't like dust jackets, because they will slip and slide, but, I don't like taking them off, because a lot of books, they're sometimes blank underneath the dust jacket, or it's also kind of annoying where it has an image on there, on the cover, but it's like on the naked hardback, but you can barely see it, because it's, for some reason, they decided to make it the same color as the book. I find that really annoying. It's like, what's the point if you can barely see it, unless you're looking like this, like staring at the book. So yeah, I would take the dust jacket off of this one, and if I brought it with me to the pool or something. Which I guess not. The pool's closed. I think it I don't know when it closes. I'll have to because it's like it's September, so I'm assuming it's closed now. But anyway, it's so beautiful. And it's just I guess I'm the group of people that is enjoying it, that enjoys it. At least so far, I'm enjoying it, and that it's just more about you just got to read it. You know, I mean, of course, it's probably not everybody's cup of tea, because I think it is a little polarizing. Not everybody loves it, and I know that Maddie from the Book Pusher she was talking about this book because it's a book that she considers loosely to be one of those dark academia books, because it does take place in a college. Our main character is a student, but she was saying, like, not everybody loves it. Some people, oh, I didn't notice that. I just noticed that there's four keys. I know that I do remember in the book they do describe that each key is individual, but I just noticed that, but on the cover, all the keys have a different design on them. Like, there's that one, it looks like almost like a Wiccan symbol, or like a star or something, or like the Star of David or something. And then this is like a book, and then this is the bee, which is important. And then this is a heart with a crown on it. I did not notice that before. Oh, and there's one on the back that is a feather. Looks like a feather. I didn't notice that. But anyway, so yeah, this is just such a great, I'm so far, it's definitely a book that you just gotta read it. Like I said, it's not everybody, Maddie was saying not everybody loved it, and I think some people had a problem with the ending, like it wasn't very satisfying. But you can compare it to her. The problem, I think a lot of people make a mistake, and it doesn't help that the publishing companies, I think, kind of unconsciously encourage it, with there being like, oh, this is the next Game of Thrones or the next Harry Potter, and then so people automatically can't help but compare it to those books, and they're like, oh, is it as good as those books? And it rarely ever is. Or I shouldn't say that, but a lot of times that's such a high standard. I get that it's a selling technique, but it's such an unfair technique, because it forces you, it just very much puts pressure on the author's work to be as good as their previous work, or be as good as another author's work that was very popular. And it's not fair to that book. Like, you want the book to decide how you feel about the book on its own merits. But like I said, you gotta sell the book first. Unfortunately, I think a lot of publishers are always going to continue to do that, comparing to books that sell and were very popular. Okay, so now let's update on what I'm gonna read. Also, like, I'm gonna keep reading Les Miserables, of course, but I also decided I probably should consider reading something like this, because I don't want to read like just a bunch of short stories, just so I can be like, because I always, even though, again, I've said this before, I know it's not about quantity, but I just can't help it, and I just like the idea that accomplished a lot of books, accomplished reading a lot of books and finished them. I know it shouldn't be about that, but it makes me sort of proud that I've read all those books. And as much as it annoys me, it also kind of felt kind of nice when, kind of funny, kind of like a little sense of pride when, Larissa was like, because she asked me, what I've read so far this year. And so I just figured, because I write a document what I read that month. And so I sent it, I just copy and pasted and sent it to her. And she was just like, wow, I've only read like 3 or 5 books, and you've read that many? And even though it annoys me when people are constantly like, oh, it's so amazing that you read at your age, that you're passionate about reading, and how my dad and mom were constantly like, when we did trivia night at my work, they were like, they wanted me to go with oh, you read so much, so you're so smart. And like, even though that still kind of annoys me, of course, it's more annoying when someone interrupts you while you're reading, or gets the literary work mixed up with something else, like David Copperfield mixed up with the magician David Copperfield. But anyway, so I kind of, despite that, I was kind of felt very proud that she was impressed. And I guess, I don't know, because she's someone that I don't hear, because the rest of, we have we have our separate lives, out of sight, out of mind. She lives back in Maryland, I live here in North Carolina, and she has her life, I have mine. So I don't hear her, we're not constantly talking, and she's not constantly saying how, oh my god, you read, it's so amazing. So I guess it doesn't bother me as much when she, when she was like, oh, I cannot believe you read that many books. I know I'm a hypocrite, but anyway, so yeah, it's kind of gives me pleasure to be like, oh, I've read so much that month, even though it shouldn't be about that. So I decided I need to start reading this one, which does not have a cover on it. It does not have a dust jacket on it. But here is what's in this book if you can't read it. This Side of Paradise and The Last Tycoon by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I guess they're novellas. I wonder, would they... I should look it up in that collection if they would be in that collection. Because then I'll be like, okay, so do I read that one or do I read it in here? I feel like I should read it in here since I have it, if they are in that one. But I do not know what these are about. All I just know they're in the 1920s and they're about Fitzgerald. I mean they're written by Fitzgerald. And I want to read more of his work. I've read quite a few of his short stories, and I just love them. I've had a good time so far. I mean, there's some that I'm just like, it's okay, but there are some that I absolutely love by him. Like A Diamond as Big as the Ritz, I like that one. Bernice Bobs Her Hair, I like that one. I would have to go through them and think about which ones I absolutely love. Or at least like. But anyway. So I couldn't really tell you what these are about. I just figured I need to read them. This was one of the books I got at the roast office. I believe. Yeah, I think so. So I'm gonna read these. I wish the book had them, but obviously the original owner of this book probably lost the dust jacket or something, or maybe it got ruined. I don't know. And that's okay. I mean, there's the title, and I can say that it looks vintage. I'm gonna read that, and then I feel like, because I decided I enjoy the series, but I'm gonna donate it when I'm done with the series. I decided to take off the first two books in the Seven Realms series and donate it when I'm done with the series to the roast office or to Black Castle Bookstore. So I want to read The Grey Wolf Throne soon. So dang it. Okay, that's not going to come up easily. Try to take this off. I do like the series. It's just, do I love it enough to want to keep it? And I want to make room for other books, other series, and other standalone books. And it's too, and I don't know if I'll ever get another shelf. My, maybe one day when I'm living on my own, I might get, when I don't have, a mom making me feel guilt, feel like you don't need to be buying another shelf, you don't have the room for another shelf, although I feel like I kind of do. Right around the corner from my main bookshelf, I could put a shelf, a small one. I think the other thing is my mom, was feeling like if I don't have enough shelf space, I'll be more prone to get rid of books and buy more books, but I told her I'm going to buy books no matter what. Even if I don't have the room, unfortunately, I'm just going to have to get rid of some on occasion. It's hard though because I'm a slow reader and I have not gone through my collection that fast. But But anyway, this is a really good series. I like it. It's just like I said, I'm not absolutely in love with it. Like I enjoy it for what which is funny because I went through a lot of trouble. Well, not that much trouble, but I waited around to get all the books in the series. I kept going back and keeping an eye out on them at Books A Million, but for some reason it took forever for it to get there. And for some reason it was in the middle grade children's section, which that is not. This is young adult. It should be with it should have been with the young adult books, but for some reason it was in the middle grade. But maybe that's because they didn't have room. I don't know. But I don't know if I'll ever get back around to John Adams by David McCullough. This is like one of those topics that I like and I'm intrigued by the topic, but I'm not like obsessed. I'm like I have to be in the right mood for that, and I might just buy a paperback and give the hardback back to my brother-in-law. And I did start Empire Falls. I'm not gonna get this done by the end of September, but I keep thinking, like, I want to give it a chance, and I want to read a little bit more of it. I want to read chapter 1, but I'm worried that I'm going to get bored with it. Or that I would rather just, I might better if I just watch the TV series. I think it was a series, or a mini-series. But it was the guy on Stepmom, and the husband, and then, he was also in the second National Treasure book, Book of Secrets. I can't remember the actor's name, but he plays the main character in the on-screen adaptation. And then one of the Disney Channel actresses plays the guy's daughter. But I almost wish I had gotten the paperback copy of this one too. But I want to read at least a little bit more. I want to read chapter 1 and maybe get past chapter 1 a little bit before I decide. But I'm just apprehensive. I don't know if I'm going to love this or not. So, either way, at some point I'm going to start with this. So that is what's going on with my reading, and now I have a day off tomorrow, but only a day. I have to go back, I have to work on Monday, but then I'm off Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, which will be nice. So 2 days in a row of being off. I really appreciate it. I don't like it when they only give you 1 day, because it's a bit of a tease to having just 1 day off. And I'm also, even though, like, I know how important and how I'm doing my part in helping prevent this pandemic from spreading by sanitizing the carts, it can come off as a bit tedious. And then today they were telling me in a kind of teasing way that I use way too much sanitizer on the carts. And it was like, it really made me a little, like, and I guess I can kind of understand they don't want to run out of it. We don't have unlimited sanitation, the spray. But it was just very much, I was trying to be mature and not act like a child with my response. I mean, I kept my thoughts to myself, but it still kind of made me a little uncomfortable and feel a little bad, because it's like, on the one hand, I'm thinking, well, I want it to be thorough. I want to do a good job. But then I also don't want to, be a difficult employee, when I want to be efficient and sufficient employee. So it was just very much like I was trying to find ways to make sure I don't need. And I kind of, played along with their little funny way of telling me I used too much of it by being like, oh, but I want to be thorough. And they were like, well, you don't need to drown them or whatever. Or not that, but, you don't need to soak it or whatever. And it's like, it felt really awkward. There's been a couple of moments at work that were, like, awkward, and I was trying to handle it and not get upset. And it's like, because this is the real world. Welcome to the adult world. People are gonna, there's not, I mean, these people are nice compared to how some bosses can be to you, in those kind of situations. Um, so yeah, it's a very frustrating situation because I feel like I was trying not to use too much, but I also felt like I wasn't doing a good enough job. The customers appreciate how I do. I've had compliments before. There are some people, well, no, really they only get annoyed by the little being out of the little buggies, but most of the time people are very appreciative of how I do it. So I'm a little conflicted here on that issue. Like, I feel like if I'm trying not, I don't want to use too much, like they say I seem to be doing, but then at the same time, I still want to be trying to be as thorough as I can be. So it's hard to find the balance. But anyway, other than that, I had a pretty good day at work. It wasn't terrible. But I'm so glad I'm off tomorrow, and I'm gonna get a lot of reading done, and read a lot more Starless Sea, and then probably start reading This Side of Paradise as well. Maybe read another short story from that. Another short story from that collection, because like I said, I don't want this to be I only read one short story from that collection each year. I want to read like quite a few of them and get through them, because I think with short stories it depends on the genre, if I'm gonna, and the author and stuff like that. Like with Dickens, the short stories are gonna be disappointing because I'm so used to his I'm gotten used to the novels now, and then with Kelly Link, they were a little too off-putting, and it was a little weird and confusing, even though I like fantasy and weird stuff. And that kind of stuff is almost more appealing to me when I'm seeing it on a TV or something. And like I said, when it comes to like fantasy and supernatural and all that stuff, I'm kind of used to full-length novels and series and stuff like that really expand it and explain things more thoroughly. But anyway, so there's a lot of factors, I think, which are if I'm gonna like a short story or not. There were, even with the Fitzgerald's collection, there were still some that I was a little confused by, or not confused, but I was a little disappointed. I felt like I wish that there was more to the story. That's how I feel whenever I watch Are You Afraid of the Dark. I love Are You Afraid of the Dark, and I think horror is a good format for short stories. But I wish that. When I'm watching Are You Afraid of the Dark, I keep thinking how easily you can expand on those and do so much more with those stories. But I think with horror, though, at the same time, I think because what makes something horrifying can often be that for a reader is you don't have all the answers, you don't understand, and you can't comprehend what's going on and why you're dealing with this monster, and there's a mystery, and you're trying to, and there's no, there's all these questions at the end. I think that often works really well with horror, because it makes it scary. It makes it 10 times scarier when you don't know and you can't see it, but you can feel his presence. I think that's part of the problem with King and his ending. And I think he's talked about this, that that what makes something scary is the unknown, not knowing what it is. And I think when Stephen King he has to end his stories, so it's like once you get the ending, sometimes it kind of ruins the mystery of the monster and the horror that are in this book when you don't know the answers. When you aren't given the answers. Like with it, what made it so appealing is that the monster, you didn't know the true form of the monster. It took whatever form you were afraid of. Its favorite form was the clown, but it also, like I said, it also took whatever form that scared you the most. And that's what makes it scary. So, but he had to end it. He had to come up with something in a final form. So he came with the spider, and that kind of takes away some of the magic. Now, like I said, it wasn't because it wasn't the clown. It was more just that now it has a full image. It has this image of the spider, and plus the CGI. Even I could tell that was like really unrealistic looking. Like the spiders, like Aragog and the spiders in Harry Potter, were better looking than that one. But anyway, so I am done rambling. So if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell notification below. As always, I hope you are doing whatever you can to help with all that's going on in the world right now. Hopefully by next year, everything will be somewhat back on track, and they'll have some, nothing will be resolved. I feel like it won't be completely resolved, but at least we'll be on the verge of at least dealing with some of these issues that we're dealing with currently, and really have like the whole at least with the pandemic. I think that's the one societal issue that we can at least try to resolve. The other issues that we're dealing with right now they're not going to be fixed overnight, but that one at least we can do something about. We can at least be cautious, even if they never find a vaccine. You can at least find ways around. I mean, I think there was I got a notification on the news on my phone. There was an article about what are the steps we can take if there's no miracle vaccine. I didn't actually click on it to read because I saw it when I was at work. So, but anyway. Enough with all that stuff. But I will talk to you guys later. And I hope you're enjoying your reading. Alright, bye!